what I said in the inquiry about not wanting to change anything was based on the actions of my firefighters on the night. Clearly, knowing what we know now about the building and about ACM cladding, we would do things differently. But the one thing I want to make clear is if I caused any additional hurt or upset to the people of Grenfell, that was never my intention. The loss of life suffered, those 72 people who lost their lives, the families, the bereaved people, we will never ever forget them, and we never want anything like this to happen again.
Do you regret those comments that you made to the inquiry?
I regret
would you take them back? I mean, would you do the same again?
I regret they caused offence. What I was trying to make clear was that the actions of my firefighters on the night were in an unprecedented set of circumstances. They were challenging, they were, difficult. There was something we'd never faced. And what I didn't want was for people to think my firefighters hadn't done their very best on the night, but it was never intended to cause offence.
Well, let's come now to the stay put policy. The inquiry says, had that been revoked nearly an hour earlier, there would very likely have been fewer fatalities. Do you agree with that?
I think it's very difficult to reach that conclusion without understanding fully how the building performed on that night, which is why we welcome in phase 2, not only is there going to be smoke modelling but evacuation modelling, because I think even the chairman of the inquiry himself has said he's reached that conclusion without any expert evidence. It's a conclusion he's reached. I think it's very difficult to make that assertion without the full understanding of what happened.
Slavish adherence to it, unthinking, it's like a religion. Your officers, your command, you couldn't think on your feet. The building's going up very, very quickly. This is the picture painted by the report, but you still stick by that stay put policy.
So stay put is not a London Fire Brigade policy. It's a policy built on buildings and the fact the fire should stay contained.
But you still think it's the right thing to do?
So we know over the last 5 years we've had over 5,000 high-rise fires in London, for which absolutely virtually all of them stay put has been the right policy and has protected the people in those buildings.
So you're saying it was the right thing to do?
Obviously for Grenfell Tower...
Do the same thing again?
Not to Grenfell Tower, no. Clearly now knowing what we know about the building, knowing not only about the highly flammable cladding but all the fire safety breaches, no, of course not. We do different things and we've learnt and we've got different steps in place now.
You say now knowing what we know about the cladding, but there is an issue there, isn't there? You did know about the cladding. You did know that cladding was highly combustible. You did know that it could have had that effect because you'd seen it happen before. You'd seen it happen in the Lakanal house fire in 2009.
So obviously
there were reports on it.
Obviously, Lakanal house fire, we've identified where Lakanal house recommendations were made that London Fire Brigade did not fully adhere to and learn, and we've put steps in place. The cladding there was different. It was a window unit. We've never seen a building perform.
The effect was the same. You should have known. It's the upsum really of the reports.
So nobody has ever seen a building perform in the way Grenfell did, because it wasn't just about the cladding. It was about the breaches internally and compartmentation. No building has ever behaved like that. No building ever should.
But your firefighters on the ground should have been aware that that could have happened. Had they been aware, because they'd been given the correct training, which has been described as gravely inadequate, we might not be talking about 72 people dead. That's the point.
So the point for me is that on the night the fire behaved in an exceptional way, as Sir Martin Morbix identified. My firefighters displayed incredible courage, commitment and bravery, and I'm really pleased that's been recognised. It was in circumstances of a building with a staircase that was 1 metre wide. We're talking about firefighters going into that building, trying to get people out down a very narrow, smoky staircase. I think it's very difficult to say, had the building been evacuated earlier, what the circumstances would have been. I really welcome phase 2, looking at all those factors and circumstances. But the main thing for me is understanding that ACM cladding that is flammable is not fit to be on buildings. And we've still got buildings in London that have got it on.
You should have been aware that it wasn't fit to be on buildings. I mean, the accusation ultimately is that you, as the leader of this organisation, were criminally negligent.
So I think that, it's right that the police are the ones who look into that. We're fully cooperating with the police. We've supplied them with interviews, and we've obviously been interviewed under caution, and that's right and proper. They've said they can't reach any conclusion till after phase 2 because there are so many circumstances that have not been fully identified and explored yet.
One of the things that was said to me by some of the survivors yesterday is that they can't really understand why you are retiring. It's been reported that you have a pension pot of £2 million. Why you are retiring? Why haven't you resigned?
So
you're in a public office. Why haven't you resigned?
I can understand that the people of Grenfell are hurting and the people of Grenfell want somebody to be accountable. I absolutely understand that. What's been important for me and continues to be important for me is that we are putting steps in place to change things. We are learning. We've identified our own areas that we've been concerned about way before the inquiry. It's important for me that I continue to protect the people of London by putting those steps in place and developing London Fire Brigade. And by resigning now, that would not happen.
But do you think people trust you?
I don't think people think about it in terms of trust. I think people trust London Fire Brigade.
I think they do think about it in terms of trust. I think that's wrong.
I think it's London Fire Brigade that they trust, because London Fire Brigade are there protecting the people of London day in and day out.
But can London Fire Brigade have a leader that nobody has any trust in?
So I think for me the important thing is recognising that I am here now, I'm committed to learning, I'm not running away from any of this, I'm standing here and I'm taking responsibility for London Fire Brigade.